Hi, my name's DanCollins. I'm the founder of the LivingPulse organization. I've been on here for previous two videos. Hopefully I'll be a little more relaxed in this one. It's not something I'm used to doing. So I'm going to talk about the LivingPulse organization. LivingPulse is a 501c3 nonprofit. The goal is to bring together a community of spiritual seekers who have, on their own accord, looked for intellectual validation of the oneness and connection of all of life in the universe, but also I've looked for a way to feel it in their own being. Tonight I'm going to talk about the scientific underpinnings behind it. If you, well, first let me mention the upcoming event, September 29th, Sunday, outside of Asheville, North Carolina, in Leceister, from 4 to 6:30. We're going to have some intellectual discussions, and we're going to have some activities, an introduction to some activities that might help you feel the connection to the pulse of all life. So tonight I'm going to talk more about the scientific underpinnings. There's a section on the website, www.livingpulse.org, that includes the underpinnings, both my own personal underpinnings, the philosophical underpinnings, and the scientific underpinnings. Tonight's going to be the scientific underpinnings, and it'll be mostly about how the name Living Pulse came about. I've done a lot of studying, and one of the books that really spoke to me was a book by Nick Lane, written in 2015, called The Vital Question: Evolution, Energy, and the Origins of Complex Life. The New York Times book review said, with clarity and vigor, Lane shows how the critical components and mechanisms of complex life could have developed. So what does Lane say? Well, I'm going to summarize the origins of complex life, but in the book, the first chapter is What is Life? The second chapter is What is Living? So I'll talk a little bit about the summary of what's in the first chapter and a little bit about what's in the second chapter. The first chapter, he makes the case that all of life has a common ancestor, which was formed by endosymbiosis. I won't get into that. Perhaps 1.5 billion years ago, whereby two or more simple single-celled organisms came together and formed a multi-celled organism, which is called a eukaryote. We may get back to that. That organism, the eukaryote, has evolved into all of the complex life we know today, both plant and animal. Other single-celled organisms, microbes, connected with the eukaryotes and evolved together in a strongly symbiotic relationship, such that half or more of the cells in what you think of as yourself are not really you, but they're microbial. Those microbes play a major role in everything you do. And this is the important point. All cells, yours and the microbes, are basically identical in the way that they generate energy to grow and reproduce. That process of energy generation, which is basically life, can be described in terms using either classical physics or quantum physics, but whichever is used, there appears to be a subtle pulse that takes place over and over during the process of life. So both, to add a little bit of color to it, both chloroplast and mitochondria, chloroplast and mitochondria are in plants. Mitochondria are also in animal organisms, and they utilize a process called semiosmosis, the redox reaction and ATP synthase. Now, you don't really need to understand that. I read a lot about it, and I don't understand it. So, but I think Nick Lane does, and I think that some of the things he says are right on the money. And one of the things he says, and I'm quoting from his book, "We still don't know exactly how it works, how each proton, and these protons come from the sun, binds onto the C ring within the membrane, how electrostatic interactions spin this ring in one direction only, how the spinning ring twists the crankshaft, forcing conformational changes in the catalytic head, how the clefts in the head clasp ADP and P, and forcing them together in a mechanical union, to press a new ATP. This is precise nanoengineering of the highest order, a magical device, and the more we learn about it, the more marvelous it becomes. Basically what he's saying is that within every cell, both plant and animal, in plants they are bringing the protons from the sun to create energy, and in animals they're using that energy created to create work. But the cells are doing the same thing. The chemiosmosis that takes place in each cell is basically the same reaction. Now, and that reaction is a pulse. That's kind of how LivingPulse came to get its name. Another book that came out at about the same time called Life on the Edge, The Coming of Age of Quantum Biology. This looks into all animals and plants and is just a brand new area of science. The book came out, I believe it was 2015, 2016. It's all about how quantum biology is generating energy in the cells. And I'm going to quote a section of that book. The section is titled Good, 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 Good Vibrations, Bop, Bop. And the authors discuss research that suggests, let me skip a little of this, that it had always been believed that the cells were unable to maintain coherence so that quantum physics could exist in the shell and function to generate energy. But research is taking place right now, and as we speak, or as I speak, and we're finding that the photons of sunlight enable the cell to utilize these photons and behavior of other subatomic particles within the cell, bringing the cell, as the authors say, quote, into sync to deliver the music of photosynthesis, thus generating energy. So the name LivingPulse came to be because as I studied and read more about the structure of all plants and animals and their cells, all of which evolved from the same single-cell organism, so all of life is the same. All of life as it produces energy from photosynthesis and generates energy in the process of burning that, the chemicals created by photosynthesis, generates a subtle pulse. And I think, as I talked about in the video on number 2, that is the sensation that somehow I began to feel when I was out in the natural world by myself, communing with nature. So that's where the name LivingPulse came from. That's a little bit about the scientific underpinnings. I would ask you, if you're really curious, you might want to go and read the underpinnings section on the website, www.livingpulse.org. It's got my own personal underpinnings, which you may or may not want to read, but I would just definitely suggest you read the philosophical underpinnings and the scientific underpinnings. And I think if you do, you will come away realizing that this concept is something that is very, very valid, and you will understand that in your head. Feeling it in your body is harder to do. I talked a little bit about that in the second video yesterday, and we'll talk some more about it in the next couple of videos as we go forward. So I thank you. I look forward to hopefully seeing you at the event. I said this on the first day. I would like to communicate with you, hear your ideas. I think probably I can learn something from you. I think we can all teach each other. That's what this organization is about. It's not about some one teacher telling you the secret. It's about all of us coming together, understanding things in our head, feeling those things in our being, and becoming a little bit of a community that we can all share. So thank you, and I look forward to seeing you on the 29th. Goodbye.